Hey guys, welcome to In the Newsroom. I'm Sean Lim. I'm covering for Yoo Ji-hye while she's over in London covering the Olympics. We're going to take a look at what made the news this week, but first we're going to take a look at the top headlines. For this week's headlines, we start out at the beach. To get away from the sweltering heat and to enjoy the summer holidays, Korea's southernmost beaches are seeing huge numbers of visitors, particularly in the city of Busan. 2 million people visited 7 of the city's most popular beaches last Sunday. Over in London, the women of South Korea's archery team managed to extend the country's winning streak with a 7th consecutive Olympic gold in the team event. Korea's women archers have now won gold in the team event at every Olympics since 1988. Unfortunately, not all of Korea's Olympians have been having such a good time at the Games. On Wednesday, epee fencer Shin Aram was at the center of a major judging controversy after a timekeeping error allowed her opponent to get a final touch after the clock seemed to have hit 0. Moving on to domestic news, human rights activist Kim Young-hwan has given a detailed report of the physical abuse he underwent during his 4-month detention in China. He described mistreatment ranging from bruising to hours of electric shocks and a full week of sleep deprivation. If you're in Seoul, you've probably noticed that the weather here seems hotter than ever. Even the sunset doesn't seem to bring much relief due to something called tropical nights, when the temperature stays above 25 degrees from 6 p.m. all the way to 9 a.m. Opposition party leader Park Ji-won was probably the only person happy to feel the sweltering outside air again after he was forced to sit in the prosecutor's office for nearly 10 hours on Tuesday during intense questioning over corruption allegations. Park, who is the floor leader of the Democratic United Party, continues to deny any wrongdoing. And those were the top headlines this week. Hey guys, so how is everybody?
Hello, Sean.
Tired, right?
We're half asleep.
Yeah.
We're also excited
Because of all the games. Yeah, I've noticed that. Haven't you guys noticed in the newsroom and other parts of our building, people are a bit tired these days because they're staying up all night watching the Olympic Games.
I know, especially given the 8-hour difference between London and Seoul. You know, the most games are played between like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Right. And you know, after that, we get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep and then straight to work.
Right. Yeah. So have you guys been really cheering on any particular sports?
I've been staying like 2 a.m. in the morning to watch all the sports, and I find judo so interesting. I didn't know Korea's judo interesting before, but this week Korea got gold medals in judo, and especially Kim Jae-bum's gold was so precious. And especially very impressive thing was that he prayed before going into the games, and that was very touching. It shows how he put most of his efforts. And I heard that after he wins the gold, that he was so bruised, all of his body was just, he got so much hurt, but he continued to fight, and then he got this precious gold. And I think it was very touching and moving.
Yeah, it was an exciting match for sure. And after his win, you could just see like how happy he was.
Yeah, and I've seen him training in Taening National Training Center, and he was like so focused, and you know, he was lifting weight like relentlessly without stopping. You know, and I couldn't really interrupt him for an interview because you know he was so focused. And now
you've seen him up close and personal.
Oh, very much. He was like right in the center of the gym, and you know, like his victory was even more dramatic because he went against the same opponent that he lost to back in Beijing.
Right.
And also the German athlete has a very good attitude after losing the game. He encouraged.
Very humble.
Yeah, it was very touching to see that.
Yeah, he even complimented that, you know, Kim has grown up and matured over the past 4 years while he aged to 32 years old himself. Yeah, that's what we call sportsmanship, right?
Right. So any other memorable positive events in the Olympics?
I really like the swimming 200-meter freestyle. Of course, we have Park Tae-won, and he was going against his ultimate rival Sun Yang, and they tied. And I don't know, given like the physical like looks between them two, like his son's foot is like, I don't know, like 1.5 times bigger than Park's, and his like almost 2 meters high. And like when I was watching the game, I literally thought I saw Park Tae-won's hand touch first, but then they got like the same time records.
Yeah, 1:44.93 seconds. And you know, the Sun and Park are really close together because they participated and competed like all throughout the time. And you know, it's second medal for Park in the games and second consecutive silver, you know, in the previous Olympic and this one.
That's great. Well, yeah, those small differences make a huge,
even a
difference in the
second.
outcome, right? So, and we've had some controversies over a second in this Olympic Games involving Team Korea. Like, Ji-sung, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought, wow, that one internal second, the clock just stopped ticking at the last second, and
of course, this is for the fencing match.
yeah, the fencing, big fencing for women's individual. And Shin-aram, she's the 11th seed in the world ranking, but she was advancing so smoothly until the final. She made it to the final, so we were actually expecting a very great performance from her. But then, obviously, she had an advantage in the quarterfinal at the third round, and with the advantage, she could just advance to quarterfinal if they just tied and stay defensive for the last 1 second. But then this judge gave like 3 restarts for the 2 participants.
Right. So I had some questions about that because it wasn't very clear to me, and I'm not a sports expert. But apparently, the clock stopped at 1 second, like there was some malfunction with the clock in the final second, so they had to redo that 1 second over again. But I asked you earlier, like, why did they redo it 3 times? And so the reason?
I would say that actually the clock is manually functioned. A person must press a button to actually make the clock work. And we also read a report that the person who operated the clock was a 16-year-old volunteer of the London Organizing Committee. And of course, she's not an expert nor a person official related to the game. So most people are guessing that maybe she misoperated or not pushed the button. So that's why the clock didn't run for 3 times. And we could obviously see that the clock wasn't moving throughout the 3 restarts, and that would have already counted like over 3 seconds with the German opponents like 3 over 4 attacks, and the last one eventually got acknowledged to make the match final 6-5 loss.
Right. So the very sad time for her. There's also another controversy over in badminton.
Well, so the officials have disqualified 8 women. Now, this includes 4 women, 4 Korean players in the doubles match, and so.
And this was for them not trying their best
right,
this
not
time.
trying. So it sounds funny when you first
Yeah.
hear about this controversy. Like they've
Why
been
would they
kicked
want to
off because
lose?
they weren't doing their best in the Olympics. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but basically, they were just playing, trying to get by, and so they could get a better match for the next round. And so they were kind of, it's horrible. I mean, they were, serving into the nets and purposely hitting hard so that, the shuttlecock will go out of bounds.
Right. And spectators probably, were
They were
thinking
booing,
that
yeah.
they played better next to the Han River.
Probably, yeah. And so spectators were booing, they were angry because these people paid money to watch a good match, but I mean, this was not an Olympic match at all. So the officials, officially disqualified them and said, you are not putting in your best effort. This is the Olympics, come on, poor sportsmanship. But
Right. Well, there's a lot more Olympic stuff coming up, but we'll get to that, I guess, next week, and we'll have a recap next week in the newsroom, especially when Gia comes back. But I understand, Connie, you have to go.
yeah, I have to go and I have to finish
Got to
my
run to a story.
Yeah, Olympic story for this afternoon. So I will see you guys later.
Okay. See ya. So hopefully Connie has a okay time out there with all of the heat, which has kept a lot of people awake. If you weren't awake for the Olympics, then you're probably awake because of all of the heat that we've been having. And so, of course, it's called Tropical Nights. And Leon, you did a story on tropical nights. What counts as a tropical night?
So the tropical night is when the temperature between 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. rises over 25 degrees.
Seoul is feeling the heat, and it's not likely to let up anytime soon. Last night was the 5th consecutive night the capital was hit by what is referred to as a tropical night, when the temperature doesn't dip below 25 degrees from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. On Tuesday night, the mercury never sank lower than 26 degrees in Seoul. And it seems like temperatures are still on the rise.
We issue excessive heat warning when temperatures are expected to go over 35 degrees for 2 consecutive days. We issued a heat warning for the first time in 4 years earlier today.
The forecaster added that the high heat and humidity will continue through next week. The consequences of the blistering temperatures have been quite severe thus far. Scorching temperatures sent over 200 people to the hospital for heat-related illnesses in just 5 days last week, according to the Ministry of Health and Welfare.
So yeah, there's been a lot of heat there, and also in the night. But then during the day, Seoul also had its first ever heat wave warning.
Right, so there's a difference called, last week we had what it's called a heat advisory warning, but that's when temperatures go up to over 33 degrees for 2 consecutive days. Yesterday was the first time in 4 years that the Korea Meteorological Administration issued an excessive heat warning. That's when the temperature rises above 35 degrees for 2 consecutive days. Now, it's the first time in 4 years, so you can just say like how, that's just for Seoul actually, how hot it's been. And I was out doing a story on this, and I was having such a hard time trying to get the people to talk to me about the weather. And I've seen so many people who are like fanning them, so I'm like, oh, they're the perfect person to talk to, and they're just like, no.
They were too hot to even talk about.
Yeah, they're like, don't talk to me. And I'll be like going up to them, they'd be like, no, and I would be like, it was hard, but.
Wow. But you found some people
Right,
who
right.
were really like sweating and glistening and.
Fortunately, I
It
met
looks
a guy, an English teacher, who's actually from Arizona, and he compared the weather back in Arizona to Korea, and we all know how hot Arizona is, right? And he's like, honestly, I think it's even hotter than Arizona. Like, obviously, the humidity is just so crazy.
Because of the humidity. The
Right.
temperature itself actually is high, but it's not like ridiculously high like a
Right.
desert, but it's that humidity that
It's
really
like
kills
the
us.
temperature that we feel is actually higher than the actual temperature itself. So.
I mean, this year is so severe. I mean, compared to last year, I remembered going out a lot last year for the stories, but it was mostly raining.
Right.
So really couldn't shoot the scene that we wanted to shoot because of the rain. But this year is just so hard. And at night, of course, I'm watching the Olympics, but I just can't get sleep.
Right, I was curious myself, like in how many years is Korea has been this hot. So I was looking for records, but Korea, it's been like, there's different systems for measuring the temperatures in different regions. So we don't have like a cumulative, like in a certain number of years, it's the hottest. So the number 4 years, the hottest in Seoul is the best I could get. But definitely when I talk to people who've lived here all their lives, they told me like, they've never seen weather this hot before.
But is there a special reason that why this year is specifically, hotter than?
I haven't gotten to the exact reason, but it's obviously just like the.
Maybe it's unrelated to the Earth is having very
global warming.
global warming.
Basically that's I think what it comes down to. But
Yeah, certainly we have to have a little bit more of this, and it's going to get even hotter, they say.
Right.
So we'll have to, I guess, drink a lot of water. But there's some area that Ji-won, you covered where it did heat up in a good way. The Korean wave has continued to export a lot of cultural products, and the current account balance has actually benefited from that.
Yes, it was the first half of this year was the very first period that Korea logged a surplus in its personal, cultural, and recreational services. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, Korea registered a surplus in the account that tracks exports and imports of personal, cultural, and recreational services for 3 consecutive months from March to May. This includes Korean movies, TV programs, games, audio sources, concerts, and distribution rights, but does not include tourism. Experts say Korea used to have a chronic trade deficit in the audiovisual and cultural sector until the Korean wave of music, drama, films, and games increased demand for cultural content from Korea.
Right, it's definitely a growing subsector of the imports and exports, but when you do look at the numbers, though, it's still just in the tens of millions, right? So it's not a huge, multi-billion-dollar export like a lot of our electronics and automobiles, but hopefully, one day that could happen. Although, who's making money these days in media to begin with? But I mean, certainly there's a lot of cultural content out there, and the rate of growth is pretty high.
And also, we just watched, like our UG has reports from London. A lot of fans of K-pop and K-classic even, like Sarah Chang and all these very prominent Korean artists out there. So I was very proud to see. And Korean cultural contents are really gaining momentum these days. It is spreading and it's gaining competitiveness. So this one professor who is an expert in the Korean wave, is a professor at the Korea University. He said he is expecting more of this coming up in the next few years. And if Korea just goes on producing these very talented and creative content, maybe as long as that goes on, we will see more of this balance of payment surplus.
Right, and then there's also the non-monetary effects that, of course, all of this cultural diplomacy does have. So it's just one indicator of the Korean way.
But I really do believe that we have to, strengthen our diplomatic power in sports diplomacy.
as well.
Yeah.
Well, they've been a lot more vocal, I think, and also they know the rules. Apparently, they were all issued a rule book, and then also there's the funds that were set aside to challenge some of the rulings, which I thought was very odd that you actually have to pay money to get an appeal going on in a lot of these sports competitions. But apparently, that's meant to just dissuade like unnecessary calls. But wow, well, thanks guys for sharing what you guys did this weekend. Look forward to what you're up to next week.
Let's
Thank
survive
you
this
very
heat
much.
wave throughout the week.
And also Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah, go Korea.
Go Korea.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. It was a disappointing day for Korean judoka Hwang Chun. These Olympics for Koreans. Hi, I'm Jason Lee, sportscaster here for Arirang TV. I've been sportscasting for 20 years now, and I'm pleased to be able to bring you now the latest in what's going on in Korean sports. Well, obviously the Olympics are taking place in London right now, so over there it might be afternoon or evening, but to us this is the time it is. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock is when I need to get in here to make sure I'm able to see exactly what's happening so I can tell everyone else what's happening.
내 생각에 그러면 요거 하키 들어가고 배구 들어간 다음에 요거 결과를 기다려서 저희가 어차피 이거 다 갈 수 없으니까.
Well, usually before I come in, I'll take a look at some of the results at home or at a computer somewhere. So if I have had a chance to take a look at that, then I'll come in here and just kind of make sure that there aren't any other things that I've missed. I'll also take a look at what sort of video feeds that we've received, because obviously we can't use everything because of rights. For instance, we can't use videos for the Olympics or World Cup, that kind of stuff. So we have to use pictures instead. So we have to see what we have, what can I use, what can I not use. So I'll take a look at the service providers to see what the best video that we have.
순양만 이겨라 제발. 순양만 이겨. 로켓은 지금 힘이 빠지고 있어.
It's difficult, but it's challenging and it's fun at the same time. The good news is that I love the Olympics, so this is my favorite time of the last 4 years is because I get to watch the Olympics again and I get to share it with people, so that's fun. But the difference is it's a challenge because it's something that's taking place just before I go on air. So it's not something that happened 6 or 8 hours ago. It's something that happened sometimes 1 hour ago. So I have to be on the ball. I have to be more prepared because it's so much more immediate. I have to be able to adapt. I have to be spontaneous as to what's actually happening. So that's fun, but at the same time, it's challenging. Sometimes there's nothing else to eat at this time, and you have to go with the unhealthy foods as well. It's part of the job. Morning. Before the match, she was. Now I got to go back up and do final touches on my script. See if, now that I have a little bit of extra time, just see if I can make my script a little more fun or interesting. Now that I've got it ready. I think the difference between the 6 o'clock daybreak, I try to make it a little bit more formal, more newsy, like a typical newscaster or a typical sportscaster on a news program. Whereas Korea Today, I try to make it a little bit more casual. So I'll make the script a little bit more conversational. I might add some more jokes in there, or I'll try to use a different voice to make it maybe a little bit more exciting. Then with pay off the mortgage and then leave some behind, but basically call the judges over to the city. I think my goal here is to provide foreigners living in Korea with an opportunity to understand what's going on with the sports around them and to understand that, look, just because you're not in North America or just because you're not in Europe, it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the sports here. Watching sports in Korea, watching Korean athletes, watching Korean leagues are fun too, and that's what I want to show them. I also want to show people living outside of Korea that Korean athletes are world class, that their Olympic athletes, their soccer athletes, baseball, and what have you are all up there among the highest of professional athletes, and that they're just as entertaining to watch.
So if you're wondering where Sung-hee has been, she is actually out of Korea right now. She's in Turkey covering a very important story for Arirang, and we're going to connect with her right now. Hi, Sung-hee. So what takes you over to Turkey?
Greetings from Turkey, Sean. Yes, I'm in Istanbul, Turkey, which is why I couldn't be there for the headlines this week. Actually, I just arrived in Istanbul a couple of hours ago. Earlier in the day, I was in Ankara for the signing ceremony of the Korea-Turkey FTA. And that is the main reason that has brought me to Turkey this week.
So what's the main focus of the Korea-Turkey FTA?
Yes, I think for the Korea-Turkey FTA, I think it's better to look at Turkey's geopolitical significance rather than all the tariff reductions the FTA will bring. Turkey is being seen as a gateway that will connect Korea with countries in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. And what's in it for Turkey, you may ask? Well, the FTA will give Turkey a chance to balance out its bilateral trade account with Korea, as the country has been seeing huge trade deficit.
So of course the Korean wave is also popular in Turkey. Have you been able to see any of the effects of Hallyu?
Yes, there's also a huge Korean wave here in Turkey. I heard the number of K-pop fans exceeds 100,000. However, this time around, I'll be focusing more on the Korean wave on the economic front, meaning I'll be visiting an electronics store in Istanbul to look at the rising demand for Korean electronics goods here in Turkey. And I'll also be visiting manufacturing plants of Korean companies that's operating here in Turkey.
So when can we expect to see you back?
Well, I'll be arriving in Seoul on Sunday. I'll be back to work on Monday, so I'll see you next week, Sean.
Okay, Sung-hee, thanks so much for that report. We'll see you back here really soon. Have you been able to hear of any of...
네? 네. I actually just arrived in Turkey a couple of hours ago. Earlier in the day.
I don't know.